I'm quite excited for about 30 seconds time when I can say this is written by James Cameron, because it's just really nice to have James Cameron back making films again that aren't Avatar's 2 to 78. So how many is he doing? Is anybody excited for the Avatar films? I'm not. Are you? Tell me. I don't know. Anyway, Alita.
Put the bunny back in the box.
Starring amongst others Rosa Salazar, Christoph Waltz, Jennifer Connelly, Mahershala Ali, and Ed Skrein. Directed by Robert Rodriguez off of a screenplay by James Cameron and Alita Kalogridis. Probably pronounced that wrong. Do apologise if I have. This is my review for Alita Battle Angel. Alita Battle Angel is the story of Alita. She is a machine with a human brain, and she has no memory of who she was before she was found by the guy who she's going to refer to as her dad on a scrap heap. He puts her back together, puts her back out into the world again, and this is essentially a coming-of-age story for her, where she finds out who she is and who she wants to be now. And this is a movie that I was really looking forward to, actually, because it just... I mean, not just because James Cameron wrote it. I mean, I do love James Cameron. I'm not a big fan of the Avatar movie, but, you know, his movies I really, really like. So I was just excited to see him writing something again. And visually, just from the trailer, this looked like a very, very interesting film. It looked like it could be very, very different. And I was excited to see that, because it's not often now that you see something that's very different. Every now and then they come along. Every now and then something visually mind-blowing happens in the world of cinema, but it's not that often. So yeah, I was looking forward to seeing something that was refreshingly different. And in a lot of ways, this is. Visually, I'm going to say this off the bat, this is one of the best movies visually that I've seen in quite some time. Because so much attention to detail has been put into it. Just the design of the robots, of the machines in this one, is just done so well. This is kind of a visual feast for the eyes, actually. There's so much going on in so many different shots that it's kind of hard to keep up sometimes. And watch it in 3D if you can. Which is a bit of a strange thing for me to say, because when it comes to 3D, I'm not a big fan of it. But yeah, do watch this in 3D if you can, because this is one of those movies that really, really benefits from it. And it's a film that looks so good in places that I kind of almost forgot some of the negative parts of it, which we will get to. But there's a sport in this one called motorball, and whenever we see that sport in action, it's just exhilarating. It's so exciting to watch because it's just done so well. And Alita's look, just something simple as how the main character looks, I loved her eyes that aren't quite human. And I think there's a lot of people that didn't like the look of her eyes. I've seen a few people say that. I loved it, personally. And I have no connection to this franchise at all. I've not read any of the manga. I don't know anything about the story really going into it. So I was coming into this with completely fresh eyes. And yeah, I just loved her design. And the performance, which is key here. Rosa Salazar just plays Alita with such a sincerity to her. She's a very, very sweet character, but at the same time, as she starts to learn more about herself and as she starts to become more fierce and realise the kind of weapon and the power that she has, she's able to deliver the fiercer moments of this character just as strongly as she's able to deliver the more innocent side to her. She blends the two aspects of this character together absolutely perfectly, and yeah, really, really strong performance from her. And across the board, actually, the performances are good. Even when the characters themselves aren't that great, such as the case with Mahershala Ali. His character, pretty one-note, not a lot to him at all, but the performance is good, and it always is from somebody like him. But there isn't anybody cast-wise that I had a real problem with. Ed Skrein, not big fan in this, to be honest. I wasn't a big fan of him in Deadpool either. There's just something about his performance that just came off almost a little bit cartoony for me. But he's not the only one in this one, to be fair. But yeah, of the main cast, most of them for me are very, very solid. So onto the cartoony thing then. This is kind of one of the problems I've got with the film, is that it doesn't seem to quite understand the tone. And maybe that's because of the manga. Maybe that's something to do. Maybe it does understand the tone perfectly and I'm just not getting it. But it seems to cross between, not necessarily feeling real, but feeling sort of emotionally real. And then having a giant robot calling Alita a little flea. And it just... There's cartoony elements to this that don't quite mesh with the other tone. They don't go together quite as well as perhaps they could. And same too with the romance angle. I didn't really buy into that much at all. It felt very forced. It felt like this could have been a film that would have probably been able to survive without having a love story in there. It felt pretty superfluous to everything else going on. It does reach a big emotional climax towards the end, but kind of on the run up to it, I just wasn't that invested. It just felt like something else thrown into the story because, hey, it's a movie, we need a love story. Could have done without it, personally. And the story itself is a little bit muddled. There are certain things that are introduced that just don't pay off at all in the movie. This is the main problem I think I've got with Alita Battle Angel, is that by the time the credits started rolling at the end, I was feeling pretty unsatisfied with it as a whole. It didn't feel like I'd seen a complete story. It felt like I'd seen part of a story, and then we were just kind of being drip-fed little bits about what's going to happen in Alita 2, should we get it. And I don't like it when films do that at all. I don't like it when quite a lot of what they're doing is just setting up what's coming next. It needs to be a complete story in its own right, and this for me didn't feel like it was. Sort of the main through thread of the story really isn't resolved by the time the credits roll, and it really annoys me when that happens, because we don't know if we're going to get a second one of this. We don't know how well it's going to do. In this day and age, a sure thing isn't a sure thing. Just because James Cameron's wrote it and it looks great doesn't mean it's going to make a ton of money. We've seen time and time again films come along and sequel bait us. I mean, The Darkest Minds is one of the recent examples of a movie that dangled a sequel carrot in front of us that we're never going to get, and I don't want that to happen to this one as well, because if this had been more of a self-contained story, if it had kind of just alluded to the other sort of bigger things at play rather than directly tie the story into them and not pay it off, I think it would have been a lot better. But that being said, I really do hope we get a sequel, because the world building in this film is so good. There are so many more things I want to know about it. I might even try and read the manga. I've never read any before or watched any, but yeah, might try it. But yeah, world building, top notch in this one. It was really interesting, it was really intricate, and there were so many sort of details and things thrown in that just made me really curious to find out more. So I hope this makes the money. I hope it does well enough to get a sequel, because I think this film will benefit from having a second one, just because of how they've set it up, because they're banking on the fact that we're going to get an Alita 2. So yeah, I hope we get one, because I'd hate for this to feel as unfinished as it does right now. But despite the problems I've got with it, I definitely recommend going to see this. See it on the biggest screen that you can. Do try and see it in 3D if you're the sort of person that can stand 3D. It's definitely worth checking out in that, and it's definitely worth watching. I've got problems with it. I don't think it's a perfect film. There are certain aspects that really annoyed me about it, but there's so much about it that worked as well. And yeah, visually, I've not seen anything like it. It's a 4K buy. It's an instant 4K buy for me. So that should tell you something. It's definitely worth your time, even if it's a film that I wish had made better choices when it came to its script. But yeah, I still enjoyed it. I'm going to give Alita Battle Angel a 7 out of 10. Have you seen Alita Battle Angel? If so, let me know what you think about it in the comments below. And yeah, Avatar. I mean, are you excited for Avatar 2? Let me know if you are or if you're not. Let me know what your thoughts on it, because I liked the first one well enough, but I really struggled to get through it again on a second watch. I may do a video, actually, on Avatar at some point, because I've got very mixed, complicated feelings on Avatar. Don't think it's going to be quite the success that everybody thinks it's going to be, but at least Avatar 3. Basically what I'm saying is having 94,000 Avatar movies in production may not be the best idea, but we'll see. It's going to be an interesting film, the second one at least, but yeah, let me know what your thoughts about it are as well. More reviews on the way soon, including Happy Death Day to You. The first one was a real pleasant surprise. I can't wait to see the second one. I hope it's just as good. Really do. You can follow me on Twitter, @JoeJulians, if you want to chat to me on there. I'm always talking TV and film, so yeah, come and talk to me on there as well. Thank you very much for watching this, and I will see you on the next video.